Hey there and welcome. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to define, identify, and calculate squares. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing that we need to look at are exponents, and exponents are also known as power. So we can say that something is taken to the third power, something has an exponent of 5, anything like that. Exponent and power are kind of used interchangeably. And an exponent is a little number or a variable, but normally a number, that is written in the top right corner of the base. And it tells us that we're going to multiply the base by itself however many times that exponent says. So we have this example here of b to the e. That's how we would say it, b to the e, where b is that base and your e is the exponent. So if we had this example here of 6 to the 4th, that is telling us that we have 6, which is the base, times itself 4 times. Because that's how many times the exponent tells us to multiply it by itself. So it gives us 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. And that's how we would write it out. For this class, we are specifically looking at squares, right? The exponent with the power of 2. And so where does that even come from? Well, it actually comes from a square, right? When we take the area of a square, we take the length times the width, which we all know. But remember that a square has 4 sides that are the exact same length. So our length times our width are the same exact number. So it's really going to be the side times the side. But we just said in our previous section that when we multiply something by itself, we're giving it an exponent. So side times side is really side squared because it makes a square. Gives us the area of a square. So let's look at this example here. For this square, we have the side length of 3 inches. And so our side squared, we're going to replace that s, our side length, with what we have, which was the 3 inches. And so we end up with 3 squared, which we said earlier was 3 times 3, which then becomes 9 inches squared because 3 times 3 is 9, and inches times inches, because that doesn't really give us much, turns into inches squared. For the purpose of this class, you're going to need to know how to find all perfect squares, right? Taking the base and multiplying it by itself. But these are some of the most basic ones that you should really just have memorized, right? So it starts off with 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, all the way to 15 squared. They're the most basic ones that we're going to be using over the next few years in school. So they're just the ones that it's just a lot easier and faster if you just automatically know them. But when we take these and we actually expand them out, so we actually say 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, this is what it looks like. And then when we actually multiply them, we get these numbers in red, which are our perfect squares. Now, don't worry about having this memorized today, or by the end of this video, or by the end of the class. That's totally fine if you don't. But just keep in mind that these are the most common ones that we'll be using regularly. So it's just a really great idea to just start practicing those facts. Because the faster you understand them, the quicker those problems will become. But if you notice, these problems are all positive, right? And negative numbers exist. So what does that even look like? Well, it also depends on your parentheses. Right, you'll notice here that we have negative 4 squared without parentheses is not the same, is not equal to the quantity of negative 4 squared. Let me show you why. If I have negative 4 without the parentheses squared, that's really telling me that I have a negative times 4 that is being squared. That 2, that exponent of 2, only has the base of 4. So it's really negative 1 times 4 times 4, which gives us negative 16. On the flip side, if I have those parentheses there, then that negative is being included as part of my base. So my base for this problem is negative 4. So this gives me negative 4 times negative 4. And a negative times a negative gives me positive 16. When I don't have parentheses, I get a negative answer. When I do have parentheses, I get a positive answer. You need to make sure that you know the difference because it's going to be drastically different. So make sure that you keep that in mind. We can also square fractions. We really can. If I have 1/3 squared, and please notice those parentheses there, with those parentheses, that 1/3, that whole thing becomes the base versus just a part of the fraction being a base. It turns into 1/3 times 1/3. And then we're just multiplying fractions like we normally do, which remember is straight across. So I have 1 times 1, which is 1. I have 3 times 3, which is 9. So 1/3 squared is the same exact thing as 1/9. That's really just about it. All right, so what we learned today in this lesson is we defined exponent, we can identify what and where the exponent is, and we can calculate squares. And that's it for today. So until next time, I'll see you later. Love you, bye.